Hi everyone, welcome to part 2 of the family enrollment series. In this video, we are going to look at adding a client who already has a record in CaseWorthy to an already existing family. In the previous video, part 1, entitled Navigation, we kind of looked at what these numbers mean up here in the top left corner, how to see who is in the family with the client, how to change head of household status, how to rename the family to make it easier for program enrollments later on. So if any of that is information you're looking for, please go to the first video. It's called Family Enrollment Navigation. So for this video, we have this family, King Tut, Queen Tut, Duke Tut, and then Test Eric. Test, that is the name of our fourth family member. And because I've already been working with this family, I already know that King Tut, Queen Tut, and Duke Tut are in a family altogether. If you didn't know that, please go back to the first video so you can see how to find that out. But I know that to get that family in my active family corner over here, I need to change active family and wait. And I want 217826. That was the family ID that we talked about a lot last video. And we can see King Tut, Duke Tut, and Queen Tut. Now, really the best thing to do when you're working with families is to have the client ID for every family member. That way you know exactly who you're working with. We're not going to talk about duplicates at all in this series, but it is a very important concept and it is very confusing with family members. There's a video on duplication, so please watch that if you have questions on it. But we have King Tut. His client ID is 205151. I'm just going to put that here. Next, we want Queen Tut, who's right here, and she is 204658. Then we have Duke Tut, he's right here, and we have 204433. But we can see that Test Eric is not currently in this family. I don't know if he has a record in the database or not, so I'm going to follow the steps for searching for a client before I do anything else. It's very common for people to just start a program enrollment, and then kind of work with Test Eric when they need to. That leads to a lot of duplication and it leads to a lot of extra families being created. So before you do any kind of enrollment, get your family structure, see who all needs to be enrolled together, and make sure they have a client ID. I already know that Test Eric is in the database. Next video, we're going to talk about what to do when somebody is not in the database. Okay, but I'm going to come here to find client, and best practices are to put in the first 3 letters of the first and last name. We have a lot of test clients in the database, so it's pulling up 119 rows. This means that there are 119 clients who have appeared here. This is actually quite common, and so what I like to do is click on either the first name or the last name, and it will actually alphabetize it so that it's easier to search for the person that you want. This reversed alphabetized it, so it started with like the Y's and went up to A. If I click on it again, it'll alphabetize it from A to Z, and in this case, it might be easier to find Test Eric. So we have Test Eric here, and we can verify maybe the last 4 of his social and also his date of birth. It is really important to verify and make sure that you have at least one other piece of data that you can compare it to. Sometimes, like in a case like this, where there's no social and no birth date, maybe you can look at the client demographic information, but we'd actually prefer if you reached out to hmis@auw.org for assistance in this situation. But I'm going to say that this birth date matches the information that I have. We're going to pretend that I have that birth date on the piece of paper. And the last 4 the social match. So this is the client that I want. I went to his record. I'm going to grab his client ID, and I'm going to add it to my paperwork. When you're working with families, there is space at the top of your enrollment paperwork to put the client IDs, and best practice is to do that so you know exactly what client record you're working with. Okay. So I want to add Test Eric to King Tut's enrollment. King Tut is going to be my head of household, so I'm going to highlight him so that's clear. So I'm going to go back to King Tut's record. And his client ID is 205151. Whenever possible, search just for client IDs. This avoids confusion when duplicates exist. Okay, and so we're adding Test Eric to this current family, 217826, because then we'll have all 4 people in this family. So we're going to go to Case Management, Family and Contacts, Family. We're going to locate the family that we want to work with, 217826. Click on the action gear, and we're going to edit family members. And we can see that there's an option over here to add family members over here on the right. And we also have some instructions at the top. This says that we can only use this Add Family Member button to add clients who already exist in the database. If somebody doesn't already exist, we have to do it somewhere else. But Test Eric already had a client ID, so he's good to go. I clicked on the Add Family Member button. We can see that we have the same instruction here, so this is a really important thing to know. You can only add family members this way if they already have a client ID, if they already exist in the database. I'm going to come over here to Family Member, and we see the little magnifying glass. That means that we're going to have options for searching. So we have a Find Client Lookup form that appears. And look at this. I can just type his client ID straight in. I don't have to search for him now. I don't have to worry about duplicates now. I've already done that work. So I can just grab his client ID, type it in here, and click search. And Test Eric in this case. So what this pops up with are all the families that Test Eric is involved with. That's really okay. You can just pick one of them as long as the client IDs are all the same, but they're all going to be the same because we searched for him based on that. So we can see that we have Test Eric as the first name, Test is the last name. We do need to fill in relationship to head of household. In this case, I'm going to say that they're an other relative, maybe it's a cousin, and we need to fill in gender. We have the date added so we can see that he joined after King Tut, Duke Tut, and Queen Tut. And the date removed, this is the default date, 12/31/9999. This is the end of time. It just means that they're still in the database, or they're still in the family. Okay, so Test Eric is now in here. I can click Save. Just like I said in the first video, because I changed the family, I added somebody to it, the family name has defaulted back to last name, first name, date of birth for the head of household. This creates a lot of confusion during the enrollment process, so I am going to edit the family name for this family ID so that it's clear it's the one I want to work with, and I'm just going to add my organization's initials to the end of it. So Tut King Pick. Okay, and if I want to go back to the client dashboard, I can just navigate to it there, and we can see that with our active family, we now have all 4 people, and all 4 people will be available when we get to the program enrollment. All right, so this video was about adding clients who already exist in the database. One of the biggest things to do is make sure you have the correct family structure before you begin an enrollment. So have a client ID for everybody that you want to work with. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out at hmis@auw.org.